and get ourselves started here. So I'm excited for this one. So first of all, everyone, welcome. My name is Jesse Randall. I'm the CEO and founder of Sweater. We are the host of Founder Saga. So Sweater's objective is to open up the venture capital asset class to retail investors so that anyone can invest into venture-backed startups. And we're excited about that. Lots of things rolling, but that's not the reason we're here today. We're here to talk to Jay Davis.
Yeah.
Excited to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
Oh yeah, you can.
Super pumped.
Yeah, this is going to be fun. So Jay is the founder and CEO of PillowCube. He's also the CEO of a creative agency called Creatably, and he's killing it. Yeah, I probably have more fun conversations with you about startups than anybody I know. No offense to everyone else I know. I have lots of
we like having conversations that then turn into LinkedIn posts.
That's
which
right.
I think is great.
Yeah, I think that we'll probably have some come out of that.
Yeah, I hope so.
So let's give everybody a quick intro to you.
Yeah.
And to, the main focus really is going to be PillowCube today.
Yeah.
But I don't think we're going to be able to steer too far away from Creatably and the other companies that you work with. So
yeah.
Why don't we start with the quick intro of Creatably and kind of how you got yourself into this world.
Yeah.
And then let's talk about PillowCube real quick and like where PillowCube's at, what the quick pitch is, where you're at, kind of give everyone an idea of what you've accomplished with this.
Yeah. Yeah. So started my career in product development, ironically, and then moved to help start a company called The Color Run, which we were able to grow very explosively and quickly through a lot of viral marketing, and was able to head up a lot of those efforts. And then moved into, I feel like a big part of my career is jumping from like a really great place and then to a place people are like, wait, why are you going? Like, so I went from like working in product development at Vivint, which was like an up and coming tech company, to then moving to a 5K run that threw colored powder on people. And people were like, that's crazy. And then it went nuts and grew and exploded. And then I started a YouTube channel with a friend that then had explosive growth. And then as soon as it was kind of hitting that, I was like, oh, now I'm going to go change again. And then went and did other events and consulting, and then was always just kind of looking for like, how do I use my skill set in like virality and video and marketing to help grow startups? Because that's what always was most interesting to me. And then I went to another agency for about 18 months. And then while I was there, realized like, hey, I think there's something, I've finally kind of clued in on how to use my services to help startups grow fast. And so I started Creatably almost 4 years ago.
Oh, it's been
yeah, three and a half. Yeah. Cause yeah, I guess it was in 2017. So 3.5 years ago. Yeah, it's just been crazy. Creatably's grown really fast. It's been a really fun adventure, but our focus is in taking brands and startups that already have some momentum, and how do you just accelerate that and grow that even faster? Mm-hmm. So we're always looking for people who have killer products and just need help getting to the masses, and kind of jump in and do a lot of marketing. And sometimes that's other stuff too, product development, where we always have opinions on everything. So that's the joy of working with Creatably. So
yeah, that's great. So give everybody a quick idea of like what, an advanced campaign would look like for one of these clients. Cause I think it'll give a lot of context to what you're capable of doing.
Yeah. So for Creatably, people will come and say, hey, for example, we're doing 10 million a year or 5 million a year in revenue. We really want to get to that next level. Like we're trying to hit that 30, 40, 50 mark. Mm-hmm. How do we build a campaign that kind of pushes in and creates some space for us? I always use the analogy for entrepreneurs that entrepreneurship is so hard because you have a room that's packed full of people. And then as an entrepreneur, you're trying to crowd your way into this super crowded room that really doesn't have space for another person. But you're going to push and push and push. And then once you're in, you're going to try and stop people from coming in the room yourself. And so it's just this very interesting, as a company finds themselves in a position of like, hey, we've hit 10. Now, how do we get to that next level? It usually is doing something very big and disruptive in your marketing. And so that's really what Creatably specializes in, is creating a campaign that will get you to that next level. And that usually involves a big advertising push, usually through video. We create long form ads that are really funny or emotionally driven. We're really trying to grab people's attention. And then we have a whole strategy around product and how do you grab more people's attention? How do you convert more of them? And then once they buy, how do you get them to keep coming back to that brand and making it one of their core brands that they buy from? So, and that's really been at the core of what we do, is how do you grow companies? And I very much have this philosophy that growth, if the unit economics work and you're being profitable, that most companies, once you hit that point, you need to grow way faster than you think you do. Because most businesses just don't last as long as people think. I mean, if you look at most businesses, they usually last about 7 to 10 years. Right. And so once you've hit that unit economics and profitability, it's time to put the gas pedal all the way to the floor. Right.
So give us some examples of some of the brands you've worked with.
Yeah, so we've worked with a lot of great brands here in Utah, but also across the country. So Clean Cult in New York, we helped launch. They're now in the Container Store. They're just growing like crazy. Those guys are amazing. Owlet here close to us. They have a baby sock that tracks your heart rate and oxygen. We did a bunch of campaigns for them. Homey, they're disrupting the real estate industry. Layla is a sleep company in San Francisco that we've worked with. Pillow Cube, Manly Bands is disrupting the wedding ring industry. I'm trying to think if there's anybody I'm like totally missing.
Love that last video for Manly Bands, by the way.
Oh yeah,
it was awesome. I mean, like the stuff you create is as much entertaining as it is educational.
Yeah.
Which is,
and that's what
magic.
Yeah, we really try and focus on that of how do we get people's attention. So, and once they're entertained, usually then you can teach them and tell them about your brand in a way that if they're not entertained, and I think that's where a lot of companies go wrong, is they immediately try to just like push. It's kind of like a meme monster, just that person at a party who just talks about themselves all the time. And a lot of brands suffer from that. They're just constantly talking about themselves. And we talk first about like, so if you watch any Pillow Cube ad, it's always like, if you're a side sleeper, you hate pillows. Like that's a known thing. So, and we talk about their pain and then we relate it to how we can help them.
Well, in good transition. So let's now set up Pillow Cube.
Yeah.
What is Pillow Cube? Where are you at?
Yeah. So Pillow Cube was born in, it's an idea I actually had when I was 10 years old.
This is like a childhood dream coming true here.
Yeah, really. Like I had a friend, my best friend growing up was half Japanese. His mom was raised in Japan. And I was telling her, I was like sleeping over at their house and she was like, "Oh, how'd you sleep?" And I was like, "I hate pillows so much." I don't know why as a 10-year-old I was saying that, and she was like, "Oh," and we kind of we're talking about it. And she said in Japan and Asia, there's a lot of people sleep on pillow boxes. Like that's an Asian culture. And if you go look, you can do a Google search. Egypt, they would sleep on these like wooden stands. And so I just kind of always had this funny idea of like, I wish pillows were shaped more like a box. And then I would sleep on like, a couch that has that armrest just at that perfect height. Yeah. And you're like, why aren't pillows like this? And so I had this idea forever. I was always pitching people. I even at one point was like trying to make prototypes out of wood wrapped in foam and fabric. And it just was like crazy. I mean, it was like,
that's awesome,
what I'm saying. But
we got to get a product that we didn't bring it up.
Yeah, I can message someone to bring us one.
Yeah, let's get one to do something.
But yeah, so it was just this idea that I always had. And then within Creatably, it was always like, I think that's something as an agency, we kind of had this feeling always where it's like, well, if we're that good of an agency, shouldn't we do our own products? Like, shouldn't we be doing this for ourselves? And we also saw how many companies we were helping just provide explosive growth for it. So it was kind of just born out of this idea. And then I realized you didn't have to build a wooden box, that there's so much advancements that had been made in foam, that you could actually get foam, really, really high-end foam, that actually provided the support that you traditionally would have seen from like a wood box. So, so we started prototyping, and although the product looks simple, we have a lot of like really cool developments and technology in it, especially around foam. And so launched a Kickstarter. It just kind of went bonkers. And then over time, just over the last year and a half, as it's grown, it's just kind of that thing that constantly we're like, we should probably spend more time on Pillow Cube. It's now making a lot of money. It's growing. Oh, it's still growing. We should probably devote even more time to Pillow Cube. And so now I've fully kind of transitioned. I'm spending a good chunk of my time over at Pillow Cube, just because it's now has its own whole team and staff, and it's really seeing some great growth. So yeah,
good problem to have. So are there any metrics you can share publicly about the status of the company?
Yeah, so we have seen really amazing growth from both a revenue perspective and a customer's perspective. I'm trying to think of what would my investors not want me to say.
Whatever. If there's nothing you could say, it's fine.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen the like, oh, this is now something that like, oh, this is really a product that people want. We have tens of thousands of customers who have signed up and purchased from us. So yeah, like we're realizing, hey, this is a real pain point that side sleepers have. And that's kind of the core of the idea also, was I realized, and this is like one of the stories that I like to tell around Pillow Cube, is that pillows always had been a product that treated everyone the same. It's like, this is great. If you look at any pillow almost, except for like really crazy specialty pillows that are like $400 and they have all these like gadgets but like every kind of standard shaped pillow, if you look at it, it says great for side sleepers, back sleepers, and stomach sleepers. Like it works for all sleepers. And that's just a really crazy assumption that has just held in the industry, that like, why would the same shape work for people who lay on their back, who lay on their stomach, and who lay on their side? Those are three completely different ways of sleeping. And so that was kind of the core, but you can't, even as we developed the product, we started going down that route of like, oh, what if it folded and did this? And all of a sudden it was like, well, now that's a $400 specialty pillow. Like and so we just kept coming back to this, like, it just should be a cube, like a really nice high-end cube. And the construction is very much modeled after a mattress. Yeah. That like, if a mattress can kind of fit every body shape and kind of cradle those pressure points, wouldn't that same shape work kind of pretty great for a head? So
I feel like we need to get this product in here, because I want to talk about the product development process.
Do you want me to go grab one?
Yeah, let's go grab one.
I'll be right back.
Hold on here.
If anyone has a question.
Yeah. So while he's gone, we're going to touch on some interesting things about how he developed this product and some of the advantages he had from building on his MVP and trying to figure this stuff out. I mean, sometimes the most obvious products are the ones that do the best in the market. And to Jay's point, there's something about just specializing. And so here we go. Oh, I haven't seen this version.
This is the Pro. So it's
all
really,
right, the Pro.
Yeah.
Okay, so the one that I have is like what, a third of the size?
Yeah. So there's one that's 12 inches by 12 inches.
Okay, yes.
And then there's one that's 12 by 28. And we just transitioned to 12 to 20 by 24. And then it comes in different thicknesses. So we have stuff where you can test how thick is right for you. And so it has a custom aspect to it as well, where depending on what kind of mattress you're sleeping on, how soft it is, firm it is, you need something different. So,
right. So why don't we talk for a second about the development of this?
Yeah.
Because I mean, getting to your MVP and actually figuring out this is what you wanted.
Yeah.
I mean, you went through some interesting processes for that.
Yeah. So that's what was interesting. I mean, this was the original idea. So we had a bunch of mattress companies that were pitching us, and they kept sending us foam samples. And as I looked at those foam samples, I realized like, oh, you could actually make this pillow box out of just foam. And if you look at a mattress, like how a Casper is made, these foam mattresses are made, they have a construction that uses just foam. And so we said, what if we kind of built a similar foam pillow, but it didn't behave like a lot of the foam pillows out there. And we tried to compensate for a lot of the negatives of foam pillows, like heat. And so we've put a lot of, we have a patented foam that we use that takes away heat better than any foam on the market. And so we've been able to really develop it. And that's what's interesting is it looks so simple. But if you were just to go, we get this question on social all the time. People are like, well, I could go buy this piece of foam and make this pillow myself. The Pro is $120. If you were just to go to a foam manufacturer and say, I just want one block of this foam, it'd be anywhere from $300 to $400 for that block of foam. Because we're buying it at scale, we can do it in a way that makes sense. But that's what consumers like. If you go to Hobby Lobby and try and buy a piece of foam for $50, it's like packing foam.
Yeah.
Because it's just like,
it's garbage.
It's absolute trash. And so that's what people don't realize. It's funny how many people are like, oh, I can make this myself. And it's like, good luck.
Good luck. Yeah,
like,
exactly.
So, but that's what was, I think, interesting about the development process was it was so simple that we kept trying to like, what if we, you could build the pillow yourself and it came with all these different inserts and different types of foam and gel. And it just got so complex. And I just kept coming back to like, when I laid on this pillow, and this is the thing we see with so many consumers, when they lay on the pillow, they're just like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. And so that like reaction always kind of guided me to not go nuts. And we just kept coming back to like, hey, maybe this is the form factor that really works. And
you defaulted to simplicity. I mean, I think there's really something magical there. I mean, we talk about MVPs all the time, right? So whether it's a physical product or digital or whatever, I mean, there's a tendency to over-engineer stuff in the name of like innovation, right? And newness. But it's just not always necessary.
And it's amazing to me. I mean, as we're now getting into like patented foams and patented fabrics and, packaging that's like our packaging. So we have like a metallic bag that it comes in that's reusable. So there's like almost no waste. There's all these things we're doing that it's like, there's so many problems to solve in business and ways to improve your product that it is amazing how even when a product is supposedly really simple, like the amount of work and effort that you can still put into it. And so I think there's a quote by Steve Jobs where he talks about how anytime you find kind of a problem or a pain, you initially find this solution that's really easy. And then as you dive into it, it becomes really complex. You're like, oh, I didn't realize that this, or I didn't realize this, or, I've realized there's only 2 people in the US that make the chemicals that make memory foam. And so now it's like, and then also like people are like, well, just bring it in from China. It's like, yeah, but with tariffs and shipping, it's really expensive to ship foam in from China. And so we make the entire pillow is made in the US. It's all US products, US manufacturing. And so it's just all those problems that like people don't think about. So anyways, it's really interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I want to ask, like, in that product development process, did you ever get to a point where like, I don't know if this is going to work. Like, can we actually pull this off?
Yeah. Especially right now with COVID, like there's so many things that people don't realize are going on. I mean, I know from a consumer standpoint, people are like, nothing's in stock. Everything's gone. There's no Clorox wipes. There's none of this, there's no, what was the thing the other day someone was telling me about? Like, oh, there's no iPhone 12s. There's just all these things that are happening and people don't realize like, well, that's because COVID has like, when half the factory workers can't work anymore, what does that do? Like our factories, our manufacturing partners all year, it's like, hey, we're shut down because of COVID. Now we're back. Oh, now we have to go back into shutdown. Like it's just been crazy. And that adds on top of just the normal business stuff of, oh, this is in shortage. This is, harder to get right now. So it's been an interesting year to say the least.
Well, especially as you're trying to scale it up.
Yeah.
Too,
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's problematic.
Yeah. So a lot of the manufacturers here in the US across industries started going into a situation where you could only get 70 to 80% of what you'd ordered the month before. And so for us and a lot of our clients who are growing really fast, it becomes really hard because you're like, well, last month we didn't order much, but we're like tripling every month.
Right.
And so,
well, I think that maybe that's a data point that you could point out. I mean, like December 2020 compared to December 19, like what kind of multiple?
Yeah. I mean, like we were like, what we did last Black Friday, we did in 30 minutes this Black Friday. So yeah. So, I mean, it was just like bananas.
Yeah.
So yeah. And that's like our Black Friday was 15 times last or 20 times last Black Friday. So, and there were certain times where it was just crazy. So yeah. And that's another thing that fast growth creates is it creates some challenges around cash and just availability of product. But I think it also something we've talked a lot about is like for an entrepreneur, I think so many times entrepreneurs, they want to know if this is the thing they've dreamed of, but they're afraid to find that out. And they hide that behind a lot of things like, well, I got to wait till this is finished. And then once this is finished, I'm going to do this. And then once that's done, I'll do this. And it's like, in reality, I think they're just afraid to know. Like, do you actually have something worth all this time and energy and effort, or do you not? And I said that to a client the other day. I'm like, hey, he's kind of afraid, like, what if this is just $1 million business? And it's not the 20, 30, 50, $100 million businesses that you guys like to create. And I was like, if that's the case, let's find that out really quick. I don't think it is for these reasons, but if it is, let's not wait 5 years to determine that.
Yeah, man, I think you're digging out on something very real there.
Yeah.
I mean, that deep internal, I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's really a fear at the end of the day, right? Like the delays and putting it out there, you know, and having like the fear of someone calling your baby ugly, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's legitimate. You know, I've seen founders who are downright scared of the feedback, right? I mean, that's the funny thing too, is like, regardless of how good your product is, there are going to be people that hate it. Yeah. And I think that's a hard pill to swallow. Yeah. Because you want to take that one person in 100 or the one person in 10 and you just internalize it like they're the whole world. Yeah. Right. And I think some people are afraid to ever get that feedback, thinking that they're going to avoid it. Yeah. But I don't think anybody ever avoids it. Yeah. You know, that person is always out there. Yeah.
Oh, there's a lot of people who don't like their pillow. That's what's like crazy is like every day we get emails from a lot of people that are like, this pillow literally changed my life. I have a spinal issue. I have a nerve issue. I have a back issue. I haven't, like someone the other day emailed and said, I haven't slept in 3 years. Like literally haven't slept for an hour at a time. Like you just saved my life. And then an hour later, you get an email from someone who's like, this pillow sucks. I hate it. It's the worst. And you're like, okay, so how do I balance that feedback? So it's a challenge. And the key thing that I've found, and this is when I kind of put the agency hat on, when we interview potential clients, because we've realized just because of the success we've been able to have, we are able to be pretty picky about who we work with. And when we interview clients, one of the things I always look at is anytime a client comes and we start talking to them and it starts to get serious, I buy their product. And then I usually try at some point to say, hey, here's something I love about your product. Here's something I don't love. And if their response to what I don't like tells me whether or not I want to work with them. If they justify why I'm wrong or why I don't understand that actually is useful, almost 99% of the time, they're going to be horrible to work with. And I don't think they're actually going to succeed. If you can't listen to someone say, hey, this sucks, and then you go fix it, you're not going to succeed as an entrepreneur. When people say like, hey, the foam's too hard, or I don't like it, or the pillowcase came marked up, I always take that like Jocko Willink, like extreme ownership perspective of like, that's 100% my fault. I'm sorry. We'll fix it. And we'll do whatever it takes to make you happy. And then we go fix it. Like, wait, why is the pillowcase not fitting better? Why is it pilling so quickly? And we go and look to improve it. And that's something I just saw through Creatably. The people who I knew would be successful, and Clean Cult was probably like the first ones. We met them and did their Kickstarter, and now they're doing, tens of millions of dollars a year, and they're getting into Container Store and like bigger and bigger retail outlets, and they're going to be a huge brand. And it was when we met them, they could tell me, they were like, this product is our best product. This product is okay. This product sucks. Here's what we're doing to make that product amazing. Here's what we're doing to make this product amazing. And then the one that's great, here's what we're doing to make it better. And to me, that was like, oh, you're going to be successful. And it like almost all, now there's sometimes things out of people's control, but I think it's just a good kind of gauge of like, if you as an entrepreneur are always just justifying why the people who don't like your product are wrong, it's just a big indication of where you're at as an entrepreneur.
Right.
Where like, I know when I look at like people that I admire, like Jeremy Andrus or Johnny Hanna, like when you talk to them about their product, they're like, I know this part's not great. We're fixing it. Here's how we're fixing it. I know Jeremy Andrus and a lot of his team. We've become, one of my guys here has connected us with a lot of the Traeger team, and all of them I really respect as entrepreneurs. Like his whole team that Jeremy built early on are all incredible entrepreneurs. And they early on had to kind of go on an apology tour of like, here's why Traeger grills suck. Like, this is broken. We're going to fix this. We know that we're not doing a good job with retail partners. And this was early, I mean, 5-6 years ago, but they realized that, and then they went and fixed it. And so I think that for every entrepreneur, that's like a key question you have to ask yourself is like, when people tell me something, what's my response? So
that's really good. So let's talk more about the marketing side of things.
Yeah.
I mean, you have the benefit of helping lots of other brands pick up and move from, point A, B, or C and take them up to higher levels, right? You also have this unique experience of PillowCube where you started from nothing, right?
Yeah.
And, kind of, I don't know if that was hard or not, right? Being able to look at something where you were at ground zero and you have these clients you're serving that are like kind of above you or ahead of you, maybe is a better word.
Yeah.
So tell us, what was your strategy then? I mean, you have all this knowledge about taking products into market and everything. How did that affect the way that you took PillowCube to market? Because I mean, you've got to have like the perfect formula, right?
Yeah. We realized, well, I think that's one of the things we realized quickly is when clients come to us with a product that's already great, how much of the game they're already winning, so to speak, or like how far ahead they already are of the curve. Because we didn't realize, we kind of took that for granted. Like people would show up and we would be like, that product sucks. Oh, that product's amazing. We love that. But the market's kind of small, or people would come and we're like, we love that product. The market is huge. Okay, let's go. And we took for granted that. And so when we did PillowCube, I think we quickly realized like, okay, we built this prototype. It's amazing. We love it. It works great. We slept on it. It's amazing. And we launched the Kickstarter, which was something that we had not done a ton of. We've never really been a Kickstarter brand, agency at all. We don't specialize in that. And we just kind of launched it, and we did it more as like, let's see, for us, because it wasn't like, we didn't have investors. We put the money in ourselves. We had like a client that pushed back a project. And so we just had a week where it was like, okay, this is the week to do PillowCube. We did it really quick, got it out. But we didn't do it with like hopefully this makes $1 million. It was like, let's see if anyone besides our moms actually want this thing, like that was
a good litmus test.
Yeah. It was a true validation of like, let's see. And that's, I think, a key lesson for every entrepreneur is like, as quickly as possible, get to that point where people are going to pay for something or not. And we've had projects or products that we've also done where we launch them and there isn't that response. And it kind of sucks. You're like, oh, we put 40 grand into that or 30 grand into that. But now, like, it turns out we don't have product market fit. We don't have something that when we talk about it, people are like, I have that pain, I need that solved. So I think that was a key thing with PillowCube was like, let's just get it out there. We'd been talking about it for a couple months, and I kind of was like, okay, we're not talking about it anymore. We're just doing it. We're not complicating the product. We're just going to go. So we launched it, and there was just a really great response. People were like, oh, this is the pillow I've been dreaming about my whole life. And I was like, okay, that's really great feedback that the pillow that we've created is something that a lot of people want. And so, so we kind of used that, but then, it's just always something. And that's something I try to help other clients or people we invest in or partners really realize is like, look, it's always something. Like when you're at, I remember talking to another entrepreneur that I admire who's running like a $3 billion company. And he was like, oh yeah, like my stress today is higher than it's ever been. There's more pressure on me. It's more intense. And it's because it never ends. And so if you don't love that process, if you don't love the early days, you're going to hate the later days. Like the later days are not like, I think that's something that people who want to be an entrepreneur, but maybe haven't been one yet, they kind of idolize and fantasize like, oh, these entrepreneurs who are doing 100 million a year, 200 million a year, like, oh, it's just like pure fun. It's like, it is enjoyable. But I love every part of it. Like I love building companies. And I think that's a key thing to realize. Sorry, this like went into a different direction, but a key thing to remember is like, it's not about not having a boss. It's not about like paying yourself all kinds of money. It's like, I legitimately love starting companies. If all of my companies went under tomorrow, I'd be starting another one Monday. And so I think that's something that's important. But as we built PillowQ, we just realized like, oh, there's always some new curveball. As soon as the Kickstarter finished, we're like, oh my gosh, we raised all this money. It was amazing. It did really well. We didn't put a ton of money into marketing. So the litmus test was really important for us of like, we did 120 grand in crowdfunding. And for us, it was like, okay, there is something here. There's something that we've clued in on. And then immediately we're like, okay, let's make this. And the partner that we had found to make it was like, oh, we can't make it anymore. And we're like, what? And like Christmas is 3 months away. And so it's just like always, it's always something.
There's always something.
So I think that that's a key thing for every entrepreneur is like, you have to love solving problems. And those are like the times, I call it just like entrepreneuring. Like those times where like all the guys and girls on my team are like, hey, we can't figure this out. I'm like, okay. And like one of my lessons for them has been like, I just pick up the phone and I call 100 people. Like, okay, you're telling me no one has fabric that we can use. Okay, I'm going to call 100 people and find someone who has that fabric. And you just start calling people and you start saying, hey, I have this problem. So whether that's product-based or it's software-based, if someone's saying, hey, there's nowhere to make this feature possible, or there's nowhere to make this software in the timeline or how you need it, I just start calling people and saying, hey, this is what I'm trying to do. Who do you know that can probably help me solve that problem? And I think that's a part of entrepreneurship that you have to love. You have to love that. Like entrepreneurship is all based in doing the impossible. Like you're starting it. Yeah, it's always impossible. It's on a timeline that's impossible, on a budget that's impossible. That's why entrepreneurs are rewarded so heavily when it works. People say, oh, it's crazy they make all this money. And it's like, yeah, but they did the impossible. Right. And the impossible is always rewarded with very outsized rewards. Yeah, exactly. And so that's something you have to love, like kind of me against the world. Yeah. Everyone's trying to destroy me. I don't know. You just kind of have to enjoy that pressure of fighting against all odds.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, I think I'm going to put that a quote on my wall, right? Solving unsolvable problems reaps, what was the word? Unduly rewards. Outsized rewards, right? It's totally the truth.
Elon Musk, I just saw this quote. I wasn't trying to steal it from him, but he said, your paycheck is a reflection of how big of problems you solve. Yeah. And so I think that's just another way of that saying like, Entrepreneurs get paid a lot when it works because they solve problems that no one
that's right.
thought they could solve.
So let's talk timeframes for a second, because I think it's important context-wise for entrepreneurs to know what they're going through. So real quick, high level, how long did it take you to get ready for the Kickstarter? Like with products and all that stuff, right? And then Kickstarter until you were really in market and starting to market the product on its own, where you had production set up and you could actually fulfill orders in a timely manner and all that stuff. Like, how long did all that take?
Yes. So there was about 2 months where we goofed around a lot, and we're talking about like all these ideas that were dumb ideas. And we were doing, not that the person who had them, we all were throwing out ideas like, oh, what if you did this? And then finally we were just like, okay, let's focus. So then this is the benefit of owning your own agency. It took us a month to make a video, and even faster. Like we kind of did all that part in a week. So that part was easier for us because we have resources that most people don't have. But I would say a couple months if it had just been, me by myself. But we were able to do it pretty quick. The prototype was pretty quick. Then we launched in May, funded in June. August was launched in June, funded in end of July, August. And August was when we kind of found out like, hey, we don't have a manufacturer lined up like we thought. So then had to scramble. We shipped, we had product shipping in November, end of November, early December of last year for the first, in order to catch Christmas. We got everyone pillows before Christmas. So that was nice. And then kind of just kept, but I mean, the manufacturing problems, or not problems, but like challenges never go away, because it's always like, especially with product, you're just always dealing with these, how much money do I have? Then, it's just, it never ends. That's one of the reasons that I'm a big proponent of US manufacturing, is I don't think when you calculate it into the fact that your money is sitting in China for months and months and months before you actually get anything, I don't think China is as advantageous as people think. And so that's something I'm always pushing clients and people I mentor, is like, I know you think China's amazing, but once you pay the tariffs, once you pay the shipping, and once you have your cash, because most manufacturers in China want 50% down and then 50% when they ship, and then you get it 30 days later. And so your cash is like, it's just a cash nightmare. So that's one of the reasons I push people. So that was something we had to work on earlier this year, was like, how do we kind of figure this out? How do we make that more streamlined and kind of ramp up? But yeah, it's taken, a year and a half to really get to a point where we're like, okay, now we're almost in a position to really now take it to the next level. And we have some really exciting new products coming out that are super innovative and unique and fun. And
That's awesome. So we've got a couple more minutes, and then I want to hear some final thoughts from you. I think it'd be instructive, to talk about that stage, like after you've done the Kickstarter and you're really hitting the market, and you want to test advertising. So I think this is a conundrum that every founder looks at, is like, I've got limited resources. I've got to make this work. Right. Because if it doesn't work, I don't have any more resources to go out and sell this thing. Right. Or they've got it puts them in a tight spot. Right. So when you're first hitting the market and you're trying to figure out how to tell the story of a product, I mean, how do you do that in a way that will more likely reap success, right? Because like your bigger clients, right? I mean, they've got a big budget to create an awesome marketing piece and everything else. But when you're strapped on that stuff and you're really early and you've got some early validation and you've got to get is there, I mean, obviously there's
some
no magic.
Tips and tricks. No, I've got all kinds of tips and tricks. So one of the things I would say is try and think of, if you could visually demonstrate the benefit of your product, not tell the benefit of your product, but visually demonstrate the benefit of your product, how would you do that? And how do you create a simple product or simple video or ad that demonstrates that? So I think a really great one is Quip. When they first came out, had this ad that was going around where they took coffee grounds and they put it into, basically packed it into a ear of corn. Have you ever seen this?
Yes, I have actually.
And they were saying, this is what plaque is like on your teeth. And then they took a Quip and we're just kind of putting it around, and it was showing how it was shaking all the coffee grounds loose from the cob of corn. Cob of corn. There you go. So it was kind of showing, and it was like a super simple video. It was a girl in a dental hygienist kind of uniform with a name tag on. And there's a lot of really interesting, like there's authority. So there's like a dentist, so to speak. But she, I think, says I'm a dental hygienist. I wasn't just assuming she was a dental hygienist. But so like some great things like, hey, she's in the industry. She's talking about like this way. And it might have not even been Quip. I don't even know if that was the brand, but I remember the ad because it so perfectly demonstrated the benefit of that product. And I thought it was interesting that here's this upstart toothbrush company that has this really great demonstrable video. And yet like Oral-B, Sonicare are doing these ads that are just showing like pretty people dancing and like, you know, like that's so stupid. Yeah. And so I thought it was just a really brilliant example of try to visually demonstrate the benefit of your product, even if it's an app. We did a video for Homey, a campaign for Homey that's all around like the fear of buying a home. And so it was all about like the benefits of using their product and how it made you not have the fear of purchasing. And so, so that's kind of one of my tips and tricks is like, try to visually demonstrate, even if it's really simple, even if it's you holding your iPhone, and try and focus on that. I think another key thing that people, another key problem that most entrepreneurs have is they get into this, prove it, and then I'll invest. And I always tell people, sorry, that's not this game. Like the game of entrepreneurship is people who have a risk tolerance and are willing to swing big. If you want things to be 100% proven, go get a job.
Yeah.
Like that's not here. And even at a job, like you're going to have to take big risks. But if you want to be an entrepreneur, like it's time to put your big kid pants on and realize that it takes big risks. Like I hate when clients are like, well, why don't I give you like a $300 a day budget? Sorry. I thought my phone was silenced. Why don't I give you like a $300 or $100 a day budget? You prove to me that it works, and then I'll give you more budget. And I always tell them like, sorry, that's not what we're doing here. If you want guaranteed results, like go somewhere else. We're not saying we don't stick to results or are driven by KPIs, but entrepreneurship is about taking big risks. So if you believe in your product, put your money where your mouth is, put all your chips on the table and go for it. All the entrepreneurs I know who have had huge wins are some of the most risk-taking people I've ever met in my life. And you always hear these definitions of entrepreneurs like, well, they take calculated risks. And I'm like, that's a bunch of BS. Like they take risks that they think are calculated, but that everyone else says is a stupid move. And so, yes, it may be calculated in their own mind, but to the mass public, they're not calculated risks. And so that's an important thing is like, at the end of the day, you have to come back to, do you believe in your product or not? And if you do, put all the chips on the table and let's do this. And like, I have this mentor who every time he sees me, asks me that, like, are you going to do this for real? And are you going to start acting like a real entrepreneur? Or are you going to be a little baby who like wants to tell me excuses of why it's not working? Like, do it or don't do it. I always say he's my, like, I have the mentor who like is my cheerleader who just tells me I'm amazing. And then he's my mentor who's like, you're an idiot, go do this, you know? And he drives me. And I think that's what entrepreneurs need to realize is like, you got to go hard. Like this is a risk inherent activity. And so do it or not.
I love it. All right. Well, let's do some parting words here.
Yeah.
So I like to frame this as, talking to entrepreneurs who are either in the trenches right now, early stage, or they're thinking about jumping in, looking back at that or, analyzing the companies that you've worked on, what would you want them to know before they jump in or as they're in this early stage? What is going to help them, find more success?
So I think the biggest thing is as quickly as possible, get real feedback from people. I've done things like I will go buy a product. So with clients, when people pitch us, I go buy products. Like if they're like, oh yeah, you can buy us at Macy's, the department store. I'm like, oh, sweet. I drive over to Macy's, I buy it, and I bring it back to the office. And I say to all the employees, like, hey, what do you guys think of this product? Like, I want real opinions. And then they pick it apart. And then I'm kind of like, oh, dang, I kind of liked it. Never mind. Like that.
Yeah.
And that's a physical product. Whatever it is, get in front. Even if you have wireframes, sit down with a total stranger or as close to a stranger as possible and just ask them questions. Now, that doesn't always mean that the person is right, but just start doing that. I think that's one of the reasons why fundraising is so helpful at many times, but it's kind of muddied, is that like it at least gets you in front of people who you're asking to write a check and you're saying, hey, would you be willing to give me money for this? So that's one of my first things for every entrepreneur who's just starting or who wants to jump in, is like, stop talking and just go get in front of people in any way that you can, and ask people. Like, I made this point with Pillow Cube, like we all pitch our family. I'm like, how many of you, if I handed you a brand new Pillow Cube package, would be willing to go into a mall and not leave until you sell it for retail price?
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, oh, and I'm like, that's literally what we're doing now.
Yeah.
Like, could you walk into a department store and go convince someone in the store to buy our product? Mm-hmm. So the same thing for every entrepreneur, like do that. Go try and sell your product to someone. With Creatably, I started just pitching people, and I've now pitched Creatably probably, I don't know, 5,000 times. And you learn some things when you ask people like, hey, can you write a 6-figure check for what I do for a living?
Mm-hmm.
And it's very instructive. So that'd be like the first thing I would say. And the second thing I would say is that for most people, you can probably go faster than you think. And I would accelerate that timeline. I think there's always that kind of adage that it'll take 3 times more money and 3 times longer than you think. But I think you really do just need to be aggressive in constantly asking yourself, like, hey, is there a way to go faster? Because we just live in a world that is just moving at a faster pace. Like, it's just, even if you look at how quickly companies are getting to $1 million, $1 billion, whatever, that has increased over the last 10 years, how quickly people reach those metrics. So anyways, I think those would probably be the 2 key things.
It's really good. Nice. Jay, it's always fun talking to you.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for sharing the story with everybody. For
My
everyone
pleasure.
who's listening, thanks for tuning in. Next week we'll have some more interviews lined up. We're excited to always do these, and we'll get this one up as soon as possible so you can listen to it again. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
And here we go. Stop recording.